Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today I am joined by Kim Bannerman, and she writes historical mysteries that are set on the west coast of Canada. Her seventh novel, which is coming out called Maker of Widows, is set to release this spring, and I am super excited to read it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me along.
Of course. I always love finding new authors and I love fangirling and like getting a deep dive into like how their brain works. Cause then when I read their books, it's like I know them like a little bit more. So I really enjoy it. Yes. So for those of you out there that don't know about Kim, I am going to ask her some questions so that we get to know her stories, what made her beginning career and how she got here and just kind of a brief overview. So the first question I have for you today is could you give us like an elevator pitch of your most popular book and then the book that's coming out?
Yeah. So I write mostly historical fiction, historical mysteries that are set on the west coast of Canada. I have some speculative fiction and fantasy books as well, but far and away the murder mysteries have taken over my life completely. My first murder mystery that I wrote was called Bucket of Blood, and I got a Canada Council grant to recreate this small coal mining town 1898 on Vancouver Island and set a mystery in it. And it also happens to be my hometown. So it was a lot of fun to research my hometown and then set an awful murder right in the middle of everything. And then from
Wow.
there, that series grew and became popular. And now I'm working on a second series. The second series I'm working on is called the Circus Salmagundi series, and it follows a traveling circus that used to travel around Vancouver Island by boat in the 90s. And the tattooed lady gets into trouble and solves crimes wherever they go. So I get to choose little spots all around, up and down the coast and set murders and crimes there. And it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm so excited to like read it. I love the tattooed lady because I'm tattooed. I'm like, ooh, I can like vibe with that. And I'm always like, it was that guy in this room with that weapon, just like Clue, all the time. I love to try to like figure out who does whatever the bad thing is in whatever murder mystery before I, figure it out. So
Well,
yes.
that's my main character, Rose. She gets into a lot of trouble and she gets a little obsessed by puzzles, and she's very much about justice and seeing people get their comeuppance. So
Ooh,
yeah, that,
she's a
she's
girl
been a
after
fun
my own
character.
heart. Oh, I love that. I'm so excited to read about her. Ooh, I love that. So, even though you're doing these in this area of Canada, if you could pick, I know where you're living, but you could pick that town, but if you could pick any of the towns or villages that you write about in your stories, which one would it be?
Like for me to live in or for me to
Yeah, if
get
you could
to know
pick like
better?
any of them to live in.
Well, I mean, I do live in one of the books, like I said, Bucket of Blood takes place in Cumberland, which is a small
Mhm.
town in the woods on Vancouver Island, and it is where I live, and I love it very
Yeah.
much living here. It's a place where people do a lot of mountain biking, and we have music festivals, and it's very artsy. But I suppose if I had to pick any place from any of my books that was not Cumberland, one of my books takes place in a spot called Antioch, which was way up on the north coast, and it had an absolutely fascinating history. And I don't know if it would necessarily be the best place to live in 1922 because it was a copper smelting town, so
Uh-huh.
very polluted. But now it's completely abandoned and a ghost town, and I actually wouldn't mind going up and spending some time there and spending a summer up there. I think that would be amazing.
That would be cool. You could like see if you see anything or like
Yeah.
if anything comes around. I like that. So with your stories, do they have any sections that are more of like a light humor or are they more serious throughout?
I'd say that Bucket of Blood in that series was a little bit more adventure thriller kind of feel to it, but
Mhm.
the Circus Salmagundi books have a little more lightness to them. I mean, there's a lot of circus history in them, and they
Mhm.
are based on a real circus that really did go up and down the coast by boat that had like 100 horses and 20 monkeys, and it must have been just a crazy boat to be on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the circus books are a little bit lighter. There's a little bit of romance. Yeah, they're a little more fun.
So, out of your characters, who was the hardest main character to write?
Out of all of my books or out of the
Yeah, out
mystery
of you can
series?
talk about whatever books that have out there. Was there one that was really like struggle for you to write?
Yeah, so I a few years ago, I wrote a book called Love and Lovecraft, which was a
Mhm.
mashup of Jane Austen and H.P. Lovecraft. So it's
Okay.
called I call it my cosmic horror country romance, and the main character in that is a spinster who has kind of it has sort of the feel of Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of a different, it was a little bit more formal, a little bit more about, yeah, politeness and culture, and she was a little bit more restrictive. I found her a little bit more difficult to wrap my head around,
Mhm.
but once I got into the book, I really enjoyed it.
Once you got into it, you got there. So, would you call yourself a
Yeah.
pantser or a plotter?
My first few books were pantsers for sure.
Okay.
I just kind of flew at it and sort of let the stories guide me. But
Mhm.
I think with murder mysteries, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to be more of a plotter for that. I have
Yeah.
to have a sense. Sometimes my characters surprise me, and the person who I thought was the murderer does not end up to be the murderer, and that's always a wonderful surprise. But normally going into the book, I have to have a good idea of how I'd like to wrap it up, who I think is responsible.
Okay. So when you do your writing, do you like have like a vision board or like sticky notes like how or is it like a text document? Like what's kind of your usual guide that you
Yeah.
go by?
I often start out with recipe cards,
Okay.
and I'll have a sense of sort of the big spots, the big act pieces that I wanna have in. So I'll start writing all these ideas down on recipe cards, and that gives me the opportunity to move things around in
Mhm.
order so that I can kinda get the timeline set, and if I realize that, my characters need to have little bit of information A, I can move that forward, or if they don't need it, then I can move it back. So that gives me a sense of plotting and pacing. Once I've done that process, then I often will have a vision board and I start to put up ideas. I don't know if you can see my vision board. It's just over there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Lots of like post-it notes with ideas. A lot of here. I'll just boop, move you over there. There's my
Okay.
board over there. So yeah, I'll put up things that have inspired me or bits of trivia that I think might relate. I'll often put up maps as well so that I can plot out where people are going and what they're doing.
Mhm.
And when I wrote Bucket of Blood, like I said, it was my first murder mystery I'd ever written. I started by pantsing it, and then I realized I was completely lost and it was a big tangle and a mess. So I created a huge map. And on that map, I had all of the times down one side of every single day. Or actually, it was along the top, all the times and all the days along the top, and then all the characters here. And I was able to actually route where people were on what day and how they would have interacted so that if I when I went back to write it, there was no plot holes.
Okay.
Character A couldn't do that. It wouldn't be so it was
Yeah.
a gigantic document. It was huge, actually filled up a wall. It really
Wow.
helped. It really
That
helped.
sounds cool though.
Yeah,
Did you share it like with your
it was
fans
fun.
after the fact?
I didn't actually because as I said, it was my second novel. My first novel was published in the UK.
Mhm.
So when this one was published in Canada, I really didn't have a lot of fans here and I didn't really have a lot of people that I thought would care.
Oh,
So
I
I
think
just
that that
did
would be
it
so
and then got
interesting.
rid of it. I wish I'd kept it.
That would have been so cool to see, like, how you plotted everything out and you got your story and it's like you were an actual, like, a cop and a detective, like, figuring out, who was where and when on a large scale. That's really,
Yeah,
really cool.
exactly.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I did train originally in forensic anthropology. So my background was in forensic anthropology. I then segued into archaeology, and then
Uh-huh.
once I left school and I just realized I loved writing, and so yeah, that's I suppose where that's come from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one of my next questions was how you got started and how you got into it. So, was there, like, a catalyst or, like, a person or something you read that, like, inspired you to start writing?
I've always written. I've always enjoyed writing, and I don't remember a time that I didn't write stories. Even when
Mhm.
I was little, I was always writing stories. But when I went to university, my mom actually clipped out of a newspaper an article about forensic anthropology, and
Mhm.
she sent it to me, and it really spoke to me. I just thought it was a really fascinating job. So that's why I ended up going down that path. academically.
And
And then, of course, like I said, when I got out of university, I kept writing.
yeah, you're like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. But that's cool that you can still use your degree and use it for these stories, because yeah, that's a really interesting background, and then how you can like feed it in there to keep your note you make your stories more authentic because of all the
I
research
hope
you're
so.
doing.
I
Yeah.
mean, I really like to plot crime.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So, being that it's going to be, several books within the series and your other series, was there a character that was maybe not the main character that like kept being really loud in the background to the point where you almost had to give them a bigger role?
Yeah, certainly in Bucket of Blood there was. There was one sort of side character who kind of was loud and brash and was just really a lot of fun to write.
Mhm.
So he kind of stepped forward in the later books a little bit more. In the Circus Salmagundi, I think it's probably a lot of the background characters, just because they're circus folk, have really fascinating stories. It was also a very tumultuous time in the
Yeah.
1920s. Everyone had gone through the Great War. Everyone had gone through the Spanish flu pandemic. People were very broken and very traumatized. And so you have a lot of characters who have the opportunity to have things they need to work through and struggle. And that's always fascinating to write about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would love the research of that. Like you're saying you found actual real things in history and then are using them, but you're giving your own, flourish to it.
Mhm.
It's probably I'm excited to read them because they're probably very, very rich in their like imagery and the history and backstory.
I found that when I was growing up here, that not very many stories took place here, and there was hardly any books that were set here on the West
Oh.
Coast. And so when I grew up and I started writing books, I felt it was really important for me to be able to use this place and these landscapes as a setting, so
Mhm.
that folks who live here can actually go out and walk the streets and see the buildings I'm talking about and get to understand, because the history is really fascinating and we hardly ever see it. So it was a really wonderful venue for me to start sharing trivia and gossip and folklore and family stories that otherwise might be lost or ignored.
Kid, I wanted to grow up and be an archaeologist, and I
Mm.
loved reading all the history, and so that's
Yeah.
totally right up my alley. So, I have my questions on the side, so that's why I have 2 screens. That's why I'm looking over here, just so that you're not like, "What is she doing?"
No, no, no,
So,
no.
we talked about why you are inspired to write in this genre because of your background. For your other books, are there any characters that have kind of stuck with you even after you've left them?
Yeah. So my first novel was called The Tattooed Wolf. Like I said, it was published in the UK. And
Mhm,
it's based on an old French medieval myth about a werewolf who falls in love with the wrong woman.
mhm.
He marries her to discover that she's more of a monster than he is. And
Ooh.
so I really love that cast of characters. I fell deeply, deeply in love with that cast of characters. And the main character, Dan Sullivan, has kind of stuck with me. And
The
I
sound of
wouldn't
that.
mind. I've dabbled around with the idea of writing sequels for it. And in fact, there was a sequel that I wrote the whole way through, but I wouldn't mind sometimes revisiting that world.
Fantastic.
I think that would be fun.
So, we were talking about characters that have stuck with you, and you were talking about your one of your earlier books and telling us about that.
Yes, I fell kind of well, it was my first book that I really sort of dove into, and I didn't really wanna let those characters go, and I still love them, and I still think from time to time that I would love to do a sequel with them or a series with them, but the book's a standalone, and I think it's solid as it is, so for now, I'll just keep going with murder mysteries, and eventually
Yeah.
I'll get back to werewolves.
Oh, I love that. I love werewolves. I love shifters and all of that.
Yep, yep.
So, do you have I know you can't I don't want spoilers because we don't like spoilers. We're
Fine.
girlies don't like spoilers.
That's fine.
But do you have a favorite chapter in your upcoming book that you could just tell us the chapter number as like a
Mm.
teaser that we would like you love this chapter, we should love this chapter.
So the book is coming out in May.
Okay.
Um, I'm working on it now. My chapters don't have numbers yet. They're just
Okay.
chapter, like chapter. So I can't actually give you a number, but I'd say there is a fantastic, adventurous, dangerous, thrilling set piece event that happens about 3/4 of the way through the book.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was so much fun to write and kind of death defying and exciting.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Poor
So we
Miss
will.
Rose. Miss Rose, the tattooed lady, I'm always putting her in horrible predicaments, horrible predicaments. And so once again, I've put her in peril and she has to find her way out of it. And she always seems to find a way. So
I love that. I just got a shirt recently and you would probably appreciate it. It says, "Well behaved women rarely make history." And it's like my new favorite tagline. I just love it. So that sounds like she's that way. So I love
yeah.
that. So is there a favorite book or a favorite in your writing journey that you felt really proud?
Yeah, so I guess after The Tattooed Wolf came out and I decided I wanted to try writing a murder mystery, and
Mhm.
like I said, I was trying to figure out where to put it, if it should be London or New York and then I realized my hometown has this amazing history of coal mining and disasters and explosions and train trestle falling down and there was people in Cumberland who came from China, Japan, all across Europe, through the States, across Canada. There was such a huge group of people from around the world that came together here, all these different cultures thrown together. There was mine management and, people who had to work in the mines. It was a very, very rugged place to live. And I
Mhm.
realized what a fantastic spot to set a murder. I applied to the Canadian government for what's called a Canada Council grant. And it's where the government decides to give you a grant to support your arts. And
Uh-huh.
I received one, which was amazing. I didn't expect to at all. And so I was suddenly awarded this grant and given the opportunity to just spend months poring over my research and being able to throw everything I have into that book. So that I think when I opened that envelope and got that acceptance was probably one of the proudest moments in my writing career. I was so excited.
That's amazing. How cool
Yeah,
is
it
that?
was really, really wonderful. It was amazing. Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. That's a memory, like a core memory. Like that's awesome.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
That's really great. So, with your stories, do you always try to kind of wrap up the ending so we're not having a cliffhanger, or do you kind of thrive off of cliffhangers with it being a murder mystery?
With the first series, Bucket of Blood, it's basically called the Lizzie Saunders series. That's what I call it. That's the main character. Those are all cliffhangers, cliffhangers, cliffhangers. Um, you start reading one and it leaves you wanting more. That was kind of my idea. It's one great big long adventure, basically, with
Okay.
murders peppered throughout. With the Circus Salmagundi Mysteries, I wanted people to be able to hop in and out of it if they saw something that interested them the most.
Hmm.
So because it's set in different towns and villages up and down British Columbia's coastline, if someone wanted to read about the history of their town, they could just hop into the series at that spot.
Okay.
And it would allow you to enjoy the book without knowing anything really from the back catalog. But there is some themes through the book. So as some of the circus characters get to know each other and there's a little bit of romance and these sorts of things do carry through the whole series. So I tend to recommend people start right at the beginning, but they don't
Hmm.
have to. They don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm excited. I keep saying, I'm so excited. I love a good murder mystery, especially when it's in that time period, because it's the elegance, it's like the nuance of like they don't have all the electrical
Yeah.
abilities that we have with electronics and, photos and like all of the like crisp images and they have to solve a murder.
And really, when we went into lockdown here during 2020 with COVID, I decided to write a trilogy. That's what I thought I would do to keep myself sane, basically,
Yeah.
while the world was doing these crazy things.
Yeah.
And that's how I wrote the first 3 books. And so I set these books after the Spanish flu pandemic because I wanted to see how people reacted and how the world moved and what were the themes that people felt were important after they had
Hmm.
gone through the Great War and the Spanish flu pandemic to see how that would relate to modern day as well.
Yeah.
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 It's a cool parallel, like
Some really
because of the
interesting
scope.
themes. Yeah. Interesting themes started popping up along the way. So, yeah.
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 It's great.
It's been fun.
So if you could hop in as one of your characters for the series since they're at the circus,
Mhm.
which act would you want to do? Like if you could pick any of the acts.
It's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I have some tattoos. but they're not really in a place I'm all that comfortable with showing people. Um, there's one act in it, The Geek. I love his act. I don't know if I'm the right person for it because I'm a vegetarian, and his act is basically to scare and freak out people and rip animals to shreds and be
Ooh,
horrible and monstrous. But I would think that that would be kind of freeing too, actually, to be able
yeah,
to scream and howl and rattle the bars of a cage. And yeah, so I don't
yeah.
know, maybe that one. That'd
Maybe
be
that one. Okay, I like that.
for an hour until I got tired.
I got tired. So when you're writing these historical stories, how do you go about, or is it difficult to go about balancing the world building of the history of these stories with the dialogue and the characters to move the story forward?
I think once the characters started to gel and I started to understand their motivations and how they spoke and how their dialogue, it became much easier to set them as characters into this world and just see what they would do and how they would naturally respond to the
Mhm.
stimulus around them. So I think it's become easier and easier as I go along through the series because I'm getting to know them better too, all the characters. And
Yeah.
the circus has it has a large cast. There is a very large cast of characters in this series, but each book, while they all focus on Rose because she's the main character, she gets to know different people in the circus with her. So
Mhm.
different books will focus on different acts and different themes and different, stars popping up. So it's
Yeah.
been nice to kind of get to know all of these characters as I go along.
Yeah.
That answered your question, right? I kind of lost.
Yeah, so you had fun with taking the lore and the history and then giving your characters life within that realm. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't daunting.
Yes, exactly. Once I kind of had a sense of who they were and what motivated them, it became much easier to just sort of throw them into these awful, like I said, perilous situations and see how
Mhm.
they'd all get out of it.
How they all get out of it. I love that. So, when you're writing, do you consume any art? Like, are you watching like true crime documentaries? Are you watching historical documentaries? Are you listening to music of the time?
Mhm.
What's kind of like your process, or do you need like silence when you're writing?
No, no, not silence. Because I find when I have silence, I can't really focus myself down. So I like to have conversation. I like writing in coffee shops and I like having people around. That's fine. But while I'm doing the process, I do like to read old newspapers from the
Uh-huh.
time because you never know what you're going to dig up when you start
Yeah.
reading old newspapers from the 1920s. I do enjoy reading fiction as well. So, I've been reading all sorts of fiction as I'm writing this book. Just sometimes it's nice to read fiction for enjoyment, but also read fiction to see how other people have approached problems or how they've
Mhm.
crafted their dialogue, what kind of language they're using. So I
Yeah.
do continue on with reading fiction. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and not just historical mysteries or true crime dramas. I like reading all sorts of things. So I think I can
So,
learn from anything.
what was your last favorite read that you've
I just finished
done?
reading the Murderbot series and I really enjoyed it. Like really, really enjoyed it. They were so much fun and the character is so cynical and so yeah, I would highly recommend it. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
I'll
I
have
said,
to
I
check
just
that one
finished it
out.
last night actually.
Ooh, I'll have to check that one out. I've heard about it. I haven't read them yet, so I'll have to check that one out.
They're good. They're really quick reads because the first ones are novellas, but yeah, highly recommend that.
That's really great. So when you're plotting out your new story, I know you said you have like the vision board that we saw in the background there, but do you do like archetype, like Pinterest boards or like some sort of board where you're like crafting your characters' looks along with their like
Yeah.
what they like and stuff,
Yeah,
or not so
sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll pull together items or I'll look for fashions of the time. I just did a bit of a deep dive the other day into shoes of the 1920s because I needed to figure out there's a lot of walking in this current
much?
book and I really needed to make sure that I was giving people footwear that they could actually hike long distances in. So you never know where a book's going to take you and where the research
Yeah.
is those rabbit holes that you're going to fall
Yep.
down.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, that's a big part of it. When I write the Circus Salmagundi books, I always have at the end of them the first chapter to the next book. Which
Okay.
means that before I can publish that book, I need to know the basic crime, murder themes of the next one, as well as the title for the next one too. I
Oh.
have to be thinking as I reach the end of get closer and closer to deadline, I need to be starting to think about the next book in
The
the
next
series.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's never a holiday between them because then I get all
Well,
excited about the next one, right?
yeah, that was I was gonna ask you when you finish a book, like, do you do any time to decompress or you're just like ready to go into the next one?
I'm ready to go, and I probably should take time to decompress, honestly. Like, it's been 6 years now of writing these characters, like, solid, no vacations. So I probably should take a break, but I can't.
So, well, do you celebrate your milestones?
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you do for that?
Well, there's a whole bunch of different things. We go kayaking sometimes for milestones. We'll take
Ooh.
a time out to head up into the mountains and go kayaking. We'll go out for dinner. We'll go to a show. Whatever is a treat, basically,
Yeah.
that I miss, we'll do.
That's good. That's good. I'm always surprised when I talk to authors how many they're like, "No, I don't do anything." I'm like, "You
Oh,
need to like celebrate. You wrote a book. Like you need to do something."
I think it's important too, though, because as a writer, like, we spend so much time in our imagination with our imaginary friends. It's
Yeah.
really important to get out there and live our life, this life, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, it's very important. It's very, very important. So when you're writing, do you have like a favorite beverage or snack or like a certain like routine or things that you have to do every time you write? Like as your like, what is that called? Like your little
Like,
routine.
routine, getting into sort of that, like, yeah. Cup of coffee is always necessary, um,
Okay.
or some sort of hot beverage. I should be probably drinking less coffee. When I get to the end of a like the end of close to deadline, I'm drinking way too much coffee, and I really need to start cutting back.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I have certain places I love to write. So I have this space here in my office
Hmm.
is my writing space, and my window, which you can't see because it's right in front of me, out over the woods. So this is
Ooh.
my place where I love to write at home. I also, when the weather gets better, I have a particular picnic table out by a lake that I like to go and sit at with my laptop and work at with a thermos of coffee. That's another favorite place of mine. And then I have a few, coffee shops that I haunt as around.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds so nice to look out your window and have like a forest and like
It's really
the yeah.
it's lovely. I mean, I lived for a long time in Vancouver, and I went to a
Uh-huh.
lot of coffee shops there, very urban environment, but now that I'm back in the woods, it's kinda nice. Yeah.
Yeah. You could take that, like, far, I feel like, with having, like, the vibes of, like, the eeriness and that ambiance of, like, a dark forest.
Well, I mean, Maker of Widows, actually, I'm not giving anything away. I think it's pretty straightforward, but there's a big theme in Maker of Widows, which is Sasquatch and Bigfoot folklore. And so I get to sit in my little writing nook and look out over the forest and imagine that, Bigfoot is looking back out at me.
I love that. I love that. So, within your story, some topics can be a bit heavier because it's, a murder mystery. Do you struggle at all with writing those types of scenes or
Some of the books are easier than others. One of the books was much more about it was based on a real crime that included the deaths of children. And that
Mhm.
was really hard. That one was a really difficult one to get through. I found, and I've had fans say that it's the darkest of the series. And while nobody has complained, people seem to have enjoyed it. It kind of did take a little bit of a toll on my mental health, that one,
Mhm.
simply because of the research and following up on
Yeah.
this old crime. Happened in the 20s. Like I said, it was a long time ago, but the research was pretty brutal for that one.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
some of the other ones, like the first one is about like an art heist, and there's one that's about an archaeological artifact that goes missing. So some of them are a lot lighter, a lot lighter. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's important to balance everything out. Yeah.
Does writing energize you or does it make you tired?
I would say it energizes me most of the time. And I am always in research mode. So if we're driving somewhere and I see a spot that I want to go and walk around and have a look at because I feel like it could pop up in a future
Mhm.
novel, I'm excited to do it. Most of the time it's exciting. When I get close to the end of deadline, like as I am now, I'm spending a lot of time writing and making sure everything is pulled together. And that can be a little tiring because
Yeah.
really I get a bit obsessed. And honestly, I should just, have an 8-hour day like a regular person and not 12-hour day or a 14-hour day.
Yes. Yeah, I could see
Probably,
that being a toll.
yeah, give
Yeah.
myself more breaks.
Yeah. Have you ever struggled with writer's block?
I haven't. No, I really love writing. I really do. And I mean, I've certainly had some days that were more productive than others, for sure.
Uh-huh.
But I've never really felt that sense of like it's never coming back. I
Okay.
I kind of trust that, yeah, if today is a rough day, tomorrow's going to be better.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good mentality to constantly keep in your mind, because then you don't get like depressed and stuck and stagnant.
Yeah, and maybe there's something too to be said for the idea that if you've got a little bit of writer's block, maybe that's your body just saying like it needs some time to work out, work out problems in the background and,
Mhm.
give yourself a little bit of grace and relaxation and eventually
Yeah.
you'll get going again.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So, if you could go into a time machine and travel back in time to your younger self, what would you tell yourself knowing what you know now?
That's a good question. I would probably tell myself, hmm, I would probably tell myself that all the rough stuff that might happen and all the worries you're going to have and all of the experiences you're going to have will eventually support the career that you'll come to. That it'll build the person that you will be, and that's a good thing. I
Yeah,
guess is probably what I would tell myself.
I
And
like
worry
that.
less. I would probably tell my younger self to worry less.
Worry less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I worried a lot. I think I
Yes.
still worry a lot. So,
Oh,
yeah, I think I would like to go back and remind myself just to take a deep breath and
yeah.
relax. It's okay.
Yep. I feel you. I constantly I tell myself and I tell my kids, I'm like, everything's always okay. Like,
Yeah,
everything's always okay.
it's
It's
fine.
okay.
It'll be okay.
It's fine. So then on the flip side, while you're back in time talking to your younger self, what do you think your younger self would say to you seeing you as you are now?
I think my younger self might be confused as to why I am back living in the small town that I couldn't get away fast enough from when I was a teenager. And I would have
Oh,
to explain to my younger self, no, no, this is actually a really cool place to be. It's okay.
yeah. It's good. We're good. We
Yeah,
we made a good choice.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. So, are you at going to be at any events in your local area? Any bookish festivals or anywhere where we could see you out in the wild?
Yeah, I have a list on my website, which
Okay.
is kbannerman.com. And there's a list on there of where I'm going to be this summer. I'm doing a number of book festivals, readings, events up and down Vancouver Island.
Okay.
And actually, this weekend I'm doing a talk on circus and circus history on the BC coast. So that's on Saturday. But yeah, if anyone's interested in knowing where I will be, it's probably going to be on Vancouver Island. But there's a list there to tell people what towns I'll be at, what cities I'll be at, and when.
Oh, wonderful. I'll link all that below so you guys can find it all, the information in the description below so you can catch all those places. That's so fun. I love when I get to go see authors out in the real world and like talk to them and
I
see that like
love like I said before, writing is a very solitary act. Spend a lot of time in your head. And so it's been like last summer, I was out doing events 2 or 3 times a week throughout the
oh,
entire summer from March until the end of October. And so
mhm.
it was constantly out and talking to people and meeting readers and fans. And it was so inspiring. It was amazing actually to see so many people so excited about
Yeah.
reading and about circus history and murder and crime. Yeah.
I mean it is like, I love that kind of stuff, but you don't see it very much.
No, you don't. It's true. And I think I tend to tell people like if you have an author that you enjoy or an artist that you enjoy or a musician you enjoy, send them an email and let them know because sometimes it's those little bits of
Mhm.
people reaching out that can really make your day
Yeah.
so much happier. Like it's wonderful. Yeah. Sometimes forget that people are out there enjoying and sharing and talking about all these different arts. It's like this huge validation that's like, I'm not crazy and doing this for nothing. Like people are
Yeah.
really
Or
excited.
like imposter syndrome, like I have that so bad right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been
So,
writing for 25 years. I still get it. Like, I mean,
wow.
I don't think you ever abandon that. Like,
You
I
don't
don't
know,
think you
right?
ever dodge it. So, I mean, I worked
Yeah.
for a screenwriter for Hollywood and Vancouver, like, producers, and I've done all sorts of writing, but yeah, I don't think you ever really get rid of imposter syndrome. "Why am I
Yeah.
doing this? Am I really"
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You're like, "Is this any good? Should I
Yeah,
keep going?" Like
I have to tell you, I went to a writers festival or, like, a conference a couple of years ago, and, Diana Gabaldon was there, who did Outlander.
yes.
He was telling us about how, because we were all in, like, little workshop groups with her, and she was telling us about how she had just come back from Scotland, and she'd been at a Outlander conference, like,
Uh-huh.
convention, I should say, Outlander convention, and she said it was the weirdest thing to be walking around and all these people are dressed like characters out of her head. She said it was just, like, surreal.
I love that. So funny. So I thought we could play a little would you rather
Okay,
before we finish up the other questions, but I think it's just fun and it's just like rapid fire
sure.
little questions. So, would you rather read a physical book, an audiobook, or an ebook?
So, if you had asked me that question 2 weeks ago, I would have said physical book. Absolutely,
Okay.
no question, physical book. But I've kind of fallen in love with audiobooks in just, like, the last little while. So, I'm still gonna say physical book, but give me another couple of weeks and I might have changed that answer completely to audiobooks. I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like because I feel like you can get more done when you're listening to audiobooks and then you're like walking around. So it's almost like you're walking through the book as you're listening to it. Like, I love that.
And if you
I
have a
love
good narrator, it's
that. Hmm.
fantastic. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I've been told this question is really mean and that I'm really mean and I'm like evil, but
Yeah.
I have to ask everybody. Okay. So would you rather crack the spine of a paperback or ruin the dust jacket of a hardback?
Oh, that's awful.
I know. I'm sorry.
I would rather ruin the dust jacket because I
Okay.
feel like dust jackets, they're kinda goners anyway. Like,
Uh-huh.
dust jackets get wrecked so quickly. I used to work in a library for a long time, and dust jackets were just get wrecked so quickly. But a spine that's pristine is such a beautiful thing, and when you see, like, a bunch of cracked spines on a bookshelf,
Uh-huh.
it looks rugged to me.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say dust jacket.
The
I
dust
would
jacket.
rather, yeah, ruin the
All
dust
right.
jacket.
Would you rather have dinner with your favorite character or your favorite author? And it could be
Ooh,
yours or someone else's book.
I think, my man, I don't know. These are hard questions.
Sorry.
I would like to have dinner with my favorite author because I
Okay.
feel like I might learn stuff. I would
And
come
who
away
is that?
from that. My favorite author, I mean, I have a lot of favorite authors, but if I was gonna pick someone to have a good conversation with, I would pick Neil Stephenson
Okay.
because I love his books, and his books are so rich with, like, history and trivia and
Mm.
philosophy and thoughts, and I think it would be really interesting to kind of pick his brain about how he writes and how he researches and how he keeps all of that together, how he
Mhm.
organizes everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna say. I'll say
Yep. I like it. I like it. Okay. So, would you rather a murder like on the horror side or more of the murder suspense type books if you're reading it?
If I'm reading it, I think I would probably go murder. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I like murder suspense. I like
Mhm.
murder horror too. I would probably go with the suspense.
The
If
suspense.
I'm reading it, it would probably be the suspense. Yeah. I like cozy
Okay.
mysteries as well. I like
Yeah.
Agatha Christie and I like, those sorts of can just sit down and read them in an afternoon sort of,
Yes.
comfortable,
Yes.
comfortable mystery. But I'll say mystery suspense. Yes.
Okay. I like that. Have you seen Agatha Raisin? Have you watched that series?
No. No, I haven't.
It's on Acorn.
Okay.
And it's Agatha Raisin, and it's a
Okay.
murder mystery, and it's in the Cotswolds.
Oh,
And she is like a former like executive, and she like leaves the corporate world and she moves to this small town, and then like all these murders start happening, and she's like really like nosy in everybody's business, and she starts like solving the mysteries, and it's
my
so
god, that
great.
sounds perfect.
They're so good. They're so good. And there's like several seasons, so you could like binge it. It's like
Okay.
great. Highly recommend.
Onto the list it goes.
Yeah, definitely check that one out. Okay, so this one might be painful too. I've been told this one mean too.
Oh,
So, would you rather have to reread your least favorite book every month or never read your favorite book again?
I'm going to say never read my favorite book again
Okay.
because I've probably taken what I can out of the favorite book and I'll carry that with me forward. But if I
Oh,
have to
yeah.
read my least favorite book every month, that's taking time away from reading a new book that could potentially be a wonderful story and a wonderful read.
I
So that's
like
what I would,
that.
yeah.
All right. So, would you rather read the book first or watch the movie first?
I'd rather read the book first, but
Okay.
sometimes there just isn't time. So,
Yeah.
for example, I have not yet read Project Hail Mary. And the movie's
Mm.
coming out very soon, and my entire family is very excited to go see it. So I will be seeing the movie first before reading that book. But most of the time, I prefer to read the book first.
Okay. And then, would you rather a cat or a dog?
I'm a dog person. I
Dog
do like
person.
cats. I do really like cats, but I'm terribly allergic to them as
Oh.
well. And I love dogs. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, would you rather a sunny day or a rainy day?
I live on the West Coast, so we often have wet days, gray days, a lot of
Mhm.
fog, a lot of mist, but sunny days kind of boost my mood. So I'll go sunny days
Sunny days.
with the knowledge that it's probably surrounded by a lot of rainy days. Does that make
All right.
sense? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So you get a little bit of brightness throughout the gloom.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, would you rather, this is the last one, would you rather read a standalone, a duology, or a trilogy?
I'd probably want to read a trilogy if it's really good. I enjoy a good trilogy.
Yeah.
And Neil Stephenson's Baroque trilogy, I love,
Mhm.
and it's huge. I think they actually ended up getting broken down into 9 books because they were so massive, but when I read them, it was a trilogy. So I like a trilogy if it's, can keep my attention.
Keep your attention. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, have you had a interaction with a fan that's read your books that you like really is like you remember it and it's kind of stuck with you?
There's a few of them that pop up into my brain. I was at an event last year, a book event, and this woman came running out of nowhere screaming, "The circus lady, the circus lady. Oh my God, the circus lady's here." And I was kind of like, And then it ended up that she worked for the library system and they had so many people coming in and asking for my books to the library that she said, "Oh, we all know you. Like you're causing so much trouble. Like there's so many people asking for your books." And that made me laugh, and I thought that was
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So the books get circulated into the public library system?
Yep, they're all in the public library system, and they are get circulated around, and they're in a few different public library systems. And I always
Mm.
suggest to people if they look at my books and they don't necessarily know if they want them or not, to go and request them at the library
Mhm.
system and get them into their library system as well. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good thing to know, like, that you can do that and then have it, um, brought to other people that way too, because not everybody is able to purchase them. If you've requested it, then it'll be in the system that other people can find it and enjoy it.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, with your stories, are you writing in first person, third person, what's the general, or is it dual POV?
Most of my books are they? Yeah, I suppose they are. So my murder mysteries are always first person. We are following Rose on her journey as she learns to become part of the circus and
Uh-huh.
kind of comes to grips with her own troubled past and seeks out justice. So it's that's all first person. The Lizzie Saunders mysteries also first person. It just made I originally wrote it in third person, and then because Lizzie is a very strange and eccentric person, it didn't really I wasn't able to get across to people why she was making the choices she was. So I
Okay.
swapped it over to first person. Some of my monster books, fantasy books are third person. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. So I do write in both. And a lot of my short
So,
stories are in third person as well. So I have short stories and anthologies all over the place too. And for short stories, I do tend to have third person, but
mhm.
yeah.
Do you struggle with that? Like remembering to stay in whatever perspective, or is like one easier than the other?
No, I think they just bring different dynamics to the
Uh-huh.
story. So I don't necessarily have too much of a difficulty once I've decided what point of view it's going to be to stick to that.
Uh-huh.
I did a short story for an anthology last year that I did in second person, and that was
Mm.
really fun. to write in. I
Oh.
wrote it originally in third person and it just didn't feel right and I couldn't figure out why. And I happened to be teaching a writing course at that point and we were talking about POV and the importance of POV. And someone asked for some examples of second person and I was kind of drawing a blank and it made me think, wait a second, like maybe I should try that myself with this
Uh-huh.
story that I'm having a tough time with. And it worked out great. It was wonderful. So I was really
Oh,
happy with that project and with the outcome. Yeah.
that's really cool. Yeah, I haven't really seen a whole lot of second person
No, it's not used very often at
stories.
all. Yeah.
I feel like it would be hard to write, probably. I mean, it'd hard to stay in that mindset, I guess, like to keep that mindset.
Yeah, it was certainly there was a little bit like a few things I had to tweak along the way and shift and change. But when the story was done, it had such a dynamic feel to it. It was like you were right in the middle of everything and I
Uh-huh.
really enjoyed it. I can't
Yeah.
imagine doing a whole novel in second
Yeah.
person, but for a short story, it worked really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that story was called Where the Sea Meets Hell, and it was in
Uh-huh.
an anthology called The Kindred Coast.
The
And
Kindred
so it's
Ghost.
done really well. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out. So for you, what are the hardest types of scenes to write?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I try to it's hard to say. I was gonna say arguments and conflict scenes, but that's not true. Those are sometimes wonderful to write because you get to push characters beyond their comfort limit and get them to really sort of push their boundaries. Sex scenes can be hard simply because you want to make sure you get it right. And I
Uh-huh.
think people can be it's too easy to kind of fall into overused language and
Uh-huh.
tropes and cliches. So I
Yes.
think, yeah, I mean, maybe I'd say sex scenes are probably difficult. They're fun to write,
Yeah.
but you want to make sure that you're not treading old ground and yet at the same time not pushing things too far that it becomes a parody of itself. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
can see that.
yeah.
So then on the flip side, what are the easier types of scenes that you write?
Well, I really like dynamic, active adventure scenes, like where
Uh-huh.
I've put everybody in danger and who knows what's going to happen next. Those are the most fun for me anyway to
Yeah.
write. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like sitting in a chair and you're like, how would they
Oh,
maneuver and like you're acting out the scene kind of like with your own body to make sure it's right?
yes, all the time. Or I'm like doing dialogue and I'm like talking to myself, trying to figure out how people are going to phrase things. And then my children think that I've completely gone crazy. Like mom's lost it, doing voices, and acting things out. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it happens.
I like that. I like that.
There's certainly been times too where we've had people over, like friends or, people, and I suddenly realized, like, wait a second. Like, this happened with one recently. I was like, how difficult is it to pull a man's body by just holding his ankles? So it was like, okay, who's the tallest person? Can you get on the floor? I need to drag you for a little bit just to see how difficult it is. And most of my friends and family now are like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Will help out, but it's very handy to have, yeah,
I
stand.
always wonder like, for people that do write, like the horror or like the dark romance or like mysteries when they're like on their like internet searches, if like the powers that be are like, let's flag that one.
My internet searches are awful.
She's asking weird questions. We better keep an eye on that one.
I did a workshop with a group called Sisters in Crime a couple of years ago, and the workshop was an online workshop, and it was all about poisoning and like the
Oh,
plants that you can grow and the things you can use in your house to poison people and like how it works and how long it takes and like how you can distribute your poison. And
oh my
everybody
god.
we were laughing because we're like, oh, we are all on a watch list now.
Oh my goodness. But that would have been fun to like be there and like hear that. But
It
that's
was
hilarious.
learned so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Like that's I think what's the best part about writing is when you do the research,
Oh yeah.
like to see if it's even possible. And even when you're making like a fantasy story, like your brain still at some level is like, could that really happen?
Yeah, and I mean, yes, I write murder mystery and I'm not at all condoning crime at all, but
Yeah.
there's something really exciting about when you actually get to go outside and like experiment physically with things
Mhm.
that are going on in your novel just to kind of get those little details that you might not have
Yeah.
even imagined. I find that really wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So with your writing, do you have like a certain time of day that you write, or is it just kind of like whenever you can get
Yeah.
time to write?
Every morning. I write every morning for a couple of hours.
Mhm.
And that's yeah. And, like I said, I'm close to deadline now, so I'm writing all day long. But normally it's just in the morning. That's when my brain is at its fastest,
Yeah.
9 o'clock at night.
So being a writer, you've done this for, you were saying, 2 decades, a little over 2 decades. Has your process changed as far as, like, from starting a book to publishing from when you started? Like, is there anything major you've done differently?
Yeah, a lot actually has changed. I mean, throughout that whole process, I've always, like, done workshops and done programs and tried to learn consistently wherever I go. I worked for a while as a promotional writer,
Uh-huh.
so that was incredibly helpful, especially learning how to do my own marketing and that sort of thing. I worked for a while as a screenwriter and with, you know, television and film.
Uh-huh.
That was really a wonderful experience, and it taught me a lot about how to work with others and how to work under direction. Yeah, so I think throughout those 2.5 decades, my process has changed quite a bit, and I think for the better. I'm
Yes.
faster now at writing a book. It used to take me years to write a manuscript,
Okay.
and now it doesn't take that long. I have a much more seamless process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with your covers, do you help with that process? Do you enjoy that process, or is it, like, really daunting?
No, I help a little bit, but my husband actually is the one who does my covers, and he's
Oh.
incredibly talented, and so all the Circus Salmagundi books all have there's a fortune teller in the circus, and often at the beginning, she will do a tarot card reading, which will hint at what's going to happen in the book, and so the
Okay.
covers themselves are based on tarot cards. So I basically often tell him which tarot cards are gonna be involved in the book, and then he
Mhm.
runs with it from there, does the color choices and all the technical aspect of it. Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. I love that. That is so unique, and I love that you do. I love tarot, and I love that you,
Right.
like, incorporate that, and it kinda gives you, like, little clues and hints about what's going on in the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so
Yeah,
clever.
been fun.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, just more and more reasons, like, I'm gonna just start, like, binge reading, like, all of your stuff. I love that. So with you were saying it used to take you a lot longer, so now how long does it take you to finish a book?
Well, so The Tattooed Wolf, that was my first novel. I wrote it as something called the 3-day novel writing contest, where you locked yourself in a room for 3 days and wrote a whole novel. And when I came out, I had a manuscript, but it was really awful. So, of course, it took me a few years to edit and revise and actually get it to a place where I was proud of it and
Mhm.
able to send it off. And it found like I said, a publisher in the UK picked it up and published it. Now, let me see. Takes me about 6 months, I suppose, to write a book
Fantastic.
now because the characters are set. I know the personalities. I'm very good now with the idea of, like, structuring and pulling everything together. So it's a much more seamless process. I don't have
Yeah.
to spend the same amount of time getting to know the main characters and having them feel like real people because
Mhm.
they're just always there. And like I
Yeah.
said before, I often jump right from one book right into the next. So there's
Mhm.
never any downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, much faster.
Was it hard, finding a publisher, or do you prefer it over, like, publishing yourself, or is there one, or is it kind of the same?
I've done both, and they both have pros and cons. I have been very lucky. I've had really good, for the most part, really good traditional publishers who've picked up my works and been
Mhm.
wonderful with them. But of course, the market is so volatile. So I've certainly had, like, for example, Bucket of Blood, when I wrote it, it was picked up by a publisher who then, before they actually got to print, went bankrupt.
Oh,
And then it
wow.
was picked up by another publisher in the US, but they were small and they couldn't guarantee that the books would be available in Canada. And because, of course, the Canada Council had supported it, I really wanted to make sure that it was available here. So
Yeah.
I had to, like, thankfully and gratefully decline that publisher. And then soon after that, my dad, who was instrumental in the making of the book because he was a historian and a school teacher, he passed away and it had, yeah, it was a surprise and he passed away. And I was, obviously crushed, but
Yeah.
it kinda got to the point where I realized I didn't wanna wait anymore for a publisher to tell me it was good enough to publish.
Yeah.
Well, I self-published it because I just, like I said, I didn't wanna wait, and it just kind of exploded and took off, and people really loved it, and so we started our own publishing company in order to publish my murder mysteries. So, I have some books that are
Mm.
traditional and some books that I want to have control over and keep control
Yeah.
over and be able to offer to my area and people here.
I love that. Do you ever do any, like, special editions of the books?
We're talking about doing special editions of the Circus Salmagundi. So I'm on book 7 now. I will be writing 8 starting in probably June.
Wonderful.
And then once those 8 books are done, I think we were talking about the idea of either bundling them all together or having special editions. But we're also right now putting them together as audiobooks. So we
Uh-huh.
have the first 2 available as audiobooks. We're putting them together as large print as well. So they're starting to appear as large print and then as ebooks through both Kindle and Kobo. So we're doing multiple versions of this series right now. And when that's all done, we'll look at the special editions. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love that. That's so great.
It's been a really
So
interesting learning process, I have to say, like a really steep
yeah.
learning curve to the business of publishing, but I've really enjoyed it. I really have.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question. What's the most surprising or profound thing you've learned on this journey?
I think the most profound thing I have learned on this journey, like I said, was not to wait. Don't wait
Not
for
to
someone
wait.
else to validate what you've done. I think yeah, there's only so much time, right? So you may as
Yeah.
well just seize the day and move ahead. Yeah.
I love that. So, what do you feel, in your opinion, makes a great story?
When I'm reading a good story, when I'm reading a story, I'm looking for characters that I can really root for. I want
Uh-huh.
characters that intrigue me and that cause me to question and make me think, but I also want characters that are sympathetic and caring and have a good purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Do you pull personalities or traits from people around you to put in your characters, or is it all just,
I don't
in your
mean
head?
to.
I don't mean to.
I don't mean to, but they sometimes pop up. So
Yeah.
I do rely heavily on that whole, this is a work of fiction, not, but honestly, there's been a few times where someone has read a book and gone, oh my God, isn't this your boss? Or look, it's your cousin. Yeah.
I love that.
We write what we know, right? So I think
Yeah.
sometimes it just happens. You don't mean
It
for
just
it.
happens. Yeah. So, my last two questions, the first one is, what is something unique or quirky about you that we maybe don't know, or a hobby that you have that's unique or quirky or interesting?
Well, last year I started learning how to weave. So I took up
Oh,
weaving, and it was January of last year. My neighbor took
uh-huh.
me under her wing and started to teach me how to weave on her loom. And within 2 weeks, I owned 5 looms. And I mean, I have a tiny house. So we were suddenly had all of these looms here. We've since then gotten rid of a couple of them, but I love weaving. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's been I suppose that's something that maybe a lot of people don't know about me because it's fairly new. But
Oh, that's fun.
yeah, I really love like taking old fabrics or old fibers and making new beautiful things out of them.
Yeah, I love watching people weave. Like,
It's
it
so
would, I don't know if they do that there, but like here they do like the Revolutionary War reenactment or the
Hmm.
Civil War reenactment, and they have like tents. They do it near LA,
Oh,
and they fire off cannons, and everyone's in full like regalia and everything. And there's women there that have, and they're sitting there and they're doing all of like the traditional process of that, and it's so fascinating to watch that.
I've started looking at fabric in a whole new way and just seeing the
Mhm.
amount of waste and the amount of clothes that we go through. And yeah, it's really opened my eyes to how lucky we are, how fortunate we are to have such a bountiful amount of clothing and fabric around us at all times. Like people aren't, collecting rag scraps like they used to, but also,
Mhm.
I mean, it's a very wasteful process too. So I'm really intrigued by the idea of turning old things into new and beautiful things and giving them new life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Well, that's the historian in you, like to take something old. Like I love going to antique stores and finding something that's like god awful ugly and like you can restore it and like change it a little bit. Cause I love that.
Yep.
I
I
just
totally
love that.
agree. Yeah. I think anytime I can like reuse things or repurpose things or keep them, out of the landfill and give them new
Yeah.
life, make them beautiful again, I think yeah, makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. So what message do you want readers to take away after finishing your books?
I suppose what I would want people to come away with from with my books after reading my books is sort of a sense of wonder and hope that
Mhm.
things can always get better that we have power to make decisions in our life to make things better. Um, and I think too that I like people to come out of my books having learned something new about where they're at and where they are. I want people to see the world in a deeper and more meaningful way and sort of have a
Yeah.
sense of history and a sense of, the ground that they're standing on, a deeper understanding and appreciation for that.
I love that. I really love that. I love that. So we will get to see your next book springtime,
Yep. So
May, you said.
Maker of Widows should be out in May. That's the plan.
Okay.
I'm also working on an anthology of short stories with a number of writers that should be out later this year. But like I said, I haven't started on that project yet. That's still in the wings. But Maker of Widows, yeah, out in May.
I
Yeah.
love that. Well, I've linked all of her information below so that you can fangirl and you can read along. And if you pick these up, please write me and tell me what you think because I'm going to be reading them and we can read them together and talk about them together. And I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a great, I love this because I mean, I talk to a lot of authors, but I haven't talked to too many mystery writers. Like a lot of the people that I talk with are fantasy or romance. And so it's fun to hear this other side of a genre that I love so much. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Oh, I'm so glad. So please share this with your book besties out there if they like murder mysteries. And be sure to share, like, and subscribe so that way we can get her out there to even more readers. And thank you again for joining me. And tune in next time as we get another look behind the book.
Thank you.
Bye.